How's it going, fam? My name is Kurtis Mercer, and welcome to Autopilot to Alive. Have you ever felt like the life you're living doesn't actually belong to you? Like you're following a script that you never wrote. Maybe you chose a career because the money was good. Maybe you've spent years working long hours because that's just what responsible people do. Maybe you've been chasing someone else's definition of success for so long that you've forgotten to define it for yourself. The more I look around, the more I see people struggling. I see teenagers overdosing and families being torn apart. I see parents worried about how they're going to afford groceries next month. I see people working harder than ever before and somehow falling further behind. I see young people graduating from college and university only to discover that the future they were promised no longer exists. And most people look at these as separate problems. But what if they're connected? What if many of us are living in survival mode without even realizing it? What if the biggest problem isn't that we're choosing the wrong life? What if we are running a program made up of inherited beliefs, expectations, fears, and definitions of success? If you've ever watched The Truman Show, The Matrix, or Westworld, you'll notice that all of them revolve around the same idea. A person accepts a reality they've inherited. Then something happens. They begin asking questions. They begin noticing patterns. They begin realizing that the world they've accepted isn't the whole picture. Those stories resonate because they're not really about television sets, simulations, or robots. They're about awakening. They're about awareness. And I think many of us are living through the same thing. For years, I was running that program myself. I thought I was a welder. I thought I was a laborer. I thought I would spend the rest of my life working a job, collecting a paycheck, and repeating the same cycle over and over again. And the interesting thing is, I didn't come up with that idea on my own. I inherited it. My dad believed that if you wanted to succeed in life, you got to trade. You worked hard. You made money. You provided for your family. That was the path. And honestly, for his generation, it made a lot of sense. The world was different. A trade could provide a good life. A single income could support a family. You could work hard, build a future, and live comfortably. My dad wasn't wrong. He was passing down the best map he had. A map that helped him survive and succeed in the world he inherited. The problem wasn't my dad. The problem was that I accepted the map without ever questioning whether it was actually mine. I never stopped to ask whether it reflected who I was, whether it aligned with the gifts, interests, strengths, and purpose that God had already placed inside me. So I followed the script until one day I started asking questions. And the more questions I asked, the more I realized there was more to me than the program had allowed me to see. I discovered that I loved storytelling. I loved creativity. I loved business building. I loved helping people understand themselves. And I loved creating videos, having conversations, and bringing ideas to life. What I learned is that the program wasn't wrong. It was incomplete. It showed me one possible path, but it couldn't show me who I was created to be. And I think that's where a lot of people are today. They're not trapped by reality. They're trapped by a version of reality they've never stopped to question. Autopilot to Alive exists to help people recognize survival mode, question the programs they've inherited, and reclaim their lives. not by becoming someone else, but by discovering who they were created to be. Because once you can see the program, you no longer have to be controlled by it. You can choose. You can grow. You can create, and you can become more fully yourself. Recognize survival mode. Reclaim your life. Welcome to Autopilot to Alive.